Yeah.
Well, did everybody get ice cream that wanted ice cream? Hey, good. You know, my first question is, what's your mic count?
0.
One.
What's your mic count?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, you won't bother.
Dave, I'll put you outside the heat. Did anybody answer the question? What?
One.
You got one?
0, 0, 1, and 3.
You get one of those then. These are just some old filters. They're either 400 or 600. If you need one of those, don't have one, I got a few there. Let's start with our secretary. Oh.
Okay. I'm so busy eating. I'll just give the treasures since my daughter is, I don't know. Anyway, we have $4,409.89 total, $219.06 in PayPal, and $41.90 is in the bank account. And I think we just had a recent, is for the swarm line. Did we have a bill for the swarm line?
It might have been for the phone line.
Phone line.
Yeah.
Okay, we just had a bill come in for the swarm. And as far as the secretary, I put a lot of links. So when I send out the minutes, I put links for things that we saw at the meeting in June with the Bee College with the state of Colorado. And there's they have a podcast and they have videos you can watch on different subjects from the University of Florida. So all of those links are in here. So, and I did them right away so I wouldn't forget them. Otherwise, that would have been history. That's all I have.
Good.
Okay, so swarm line is starting to slow down. Unfortunately, we are getting calls still, but they're mostly cutouts. So it's,
The guy on there.
yeah, we've got several of them that are gonna be pretty complicated to get, if anybody wants to get to them, so. Yeah, there's one in a flat roof, and I just found one, there was one in Rifle, if anybody wants to go to Rifle. There's one at El Tinta Inn, but it's in between the second floor and their swimming pool. Now, they are doing remodeling right now, it's the roof of the swimming pool, the ceiling of the swimming pool. So they are doing remodeling in the swimming pool area right now, so they do have a bunch of construction people there that could help somebody put it back together. I can give you guys the information if you want to get out there.
Well, before we do that, if you're gonna do cutouts, then you need to have liability insurance policy, $2 million liability insurance policy. And especially if you're doing anything in the commercial industry. So I would say unless we don't want to be liable as a club sending somebody to a La Quinta and be cutting through a soffit or a ceiling and catch the place on fire. We'll all be looking for another place to have our meetings. I don't want to really do that from a prison cell, so. So if you have construction experience, we talked about that, a couple of you that wanted to do that, and that is something that you need. Even though the customer would say, yeah, I want you to do that. You need to have liability insurance policy for a number of reasons if you're going to be cutting into a house. So I was in construction for many years and I still have that. So that's why we did it, but it is, and even though the customer will say, yeah, sign a piece of paper releasing you of any liability, when it comes to the legal system, that paper isn't worth the paper it's written on, signature, because anyway, so that being said, cutouts are very difficult. it's in a tree or old abandoned building or something like that, it's a little bit different, but when you start cutting into somebody's house, it's a whole different ballgame, but anyway. So when it comes to cutouts, that will, there's a few of you that are in construction already and have liability insurance, then will get you directed. Anyway, sorry to interrupt there, but that was.
That's okay, yeah, it's important, so everybody's on the same page. So, we have been trying to do like finds of the month. Did anybody find anything new and interesting they want to share with the club for the finds of the month? Okay, well, I did. So I found two different articles from the Colorado State University, one about feeding bees in Colorado and the other one about making a pollinator friendly habitat. So I'll make you guys do some homework though. One is posted on our website, one is on our Facebook page. So if you want to find them, go there. I'm gonna try to drive a little traffic to that stuff. I mean, I'm keeping this stuff up. I might as well make sure people are looking at it. So other than that, I have thought, I don't know what you guys think, but we do have a carousel that rolls pictures around on there and I've been posting swarms, but I was thinking if you guys wanted to send me pictures and a little write-up, we could, again, to drive like activity to the Facebook page. I could post them up there underneath our Facebook group, like, and it could be just like I inspected today and it's pictures, or I found this, just something. If you do have kids, make sure you give expressive permission that we're allowed to post kids on the internet, because that's another one of the weird liability things. I had somebody send me a bunch of pictures from the Honeybee Festival. It had tons of kids in them. I'm like, what, are these your kids? No, can't use them just in case. So, but other than that, that's not all I have.
Vice President,
Got a couple things. First of all, the Delta Beekeepers meeting is on the 21st of this month. It's the third Monday. It's usually the Monday after this Wednesday, but it's not this week. It's 2 Mondays from now. It's July 21st. Also, at the state bee meeting, I bought some, we've had discussions at the club here quite a few times about rabbit brush honey and how it smells nasty. This is rabbit brush honey. I have tasting spoons here, so you guys can come up and smell it and use a tasting spoon and try it. To me, it doesn't taste real good if you can get it to your nose. Because it really does, it's not something, if you just smell these, like, I don't want to put that in my mouth. It's pretty good, but anyway, it's up here if you want to say that you have tried rabbit brush honey. And the last thing is the state bee meeting where we helped out. Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you very much, Brenda, and Stacy, who is not here. She's not here, but y'all were big help, and we even in the state bee newsletter. You guys were thanks. So thank you for me leading that thing, and you guys did great.
It was a really good class. I mean, it was knowledge. I mean, there was way more knowledge than I can remember. And then they did it like a trivia on Friday, and that was, I mean, some stuff was like, really? But yeah, it was interesting.
some of it was bizarre. Yeah, it was good. So that was, it was good. Jamie Ellis is
He's a heck of a speaker.
he's just a professor of entomology there at Florida University, but yeah, it's very, very knowledgeable and interactive. So good meeting you. You missed it. Sorry, you gotta wait till next year. The veterans beekeeping meeting is this coming Monday, so in the same place here at 6 o'clock. So those of you that are veterans and want to check that out. We do a lot of similar things, but it's more interactive on veterans level.
Smaller group.
Yeah, smaller group interact. And as we dive into summer, how many of you are extracting honey already? Anybody? Awesome. I mean, have honey to extract, you think, putting on honey supers. Right?
Yeah.
How many of you are just wondering what the bees are doing? You know, you walk up to the hive and say, either you get busy or out you go. Welfare bees. Yeah, that's. So It was 2 months ago, published in American Bee Journal. The University of Texas, Austin. Who is their entomology department and specializes in honeybees. They were conducting survey and testing over around 1,000 different beekeepers sent in samples of bees and comb. They tested tens of thousands of bees and honeycomb to see why the bees are dying. What was the event this year? Myself, I knew it was more than just mite load and virus load. Talking with Eric Oliver, that's Randy Oliver's son, his older son, who runs their apiary there in Grass Valley, California. Talking with Eric, they lost 70%. So Randy Oliver, his sons who run the outfit. And that's why I knew it was more than mites, because their mite load has been consistently 1s and 2s, because he is regimental and religious about making sure his mite treatments and his mite load stay static. So without a heavy mite load or virus load, there has to be something else going on. And it's not just a California thing. Depends on who statistics that you're looking at. It's upwards to 80% of the United States bee population died beginning of this year. And so it was published. That's why so many entomologists, so many universities have been doing studies to try to find what is the main cause, what's going on, what's different this year than hasn't been in previous years. And what they found is elevated levels of neonicotinoid. Neonics are a systemic pesticide that's in the plant. It starts by, they literally coat the seed with neonicotinoid, and then it is something that is put on the ground, usually in the form of saturation. So they put it in with irrigation or in a drip system. So it's from the roots up, and it is systemic. In other words, it's in the plant. So it's in the plant, comes out in the nectar and the pollen. And neonics have been touted as bee friendly. There's not enough parts per million to kill insects if applied correctly. And that's one application. The problem is, and what they're now found, is a residual effect. Neonics are staying in the ground. In fact, they are finding elevated levels in the groundwater that are traceable parts per million over safe limits for human consumption. In the levels of the bees themselves and in the comb, there have been elevated levels of neonicotinoid. And they are saying because it is toxic levels high enough to kill the bee. These are bees sent in that were dead. They froze them, comb that was sent in. So it's elevated levels in the comb and the bees. And they're saying that might not be the primary. It could be the primary reason, but it's definitely part of the reason. Very strong part of the reason. That is why Europe has outlawed neonicotinoids for 15 years now. Some parts of Europe over 20 years, but all of the European Union for 15 years. Colorado outlawed them 2 years ago. California outlawed them begins this year across the board, and as well as many states. And now that these findings are coming, and that's why it is across the country. These events took place not just in California. That's when they found out. What happens is the bees are in winter sheds during the winter. The beekeeper, when he's pulling his bees out of the winter shed in Montana and Idaho, in Washington, and in the northern states, when they're pulling them out of the winter sheds, they don't check the bees because it's too cold. They load them right onto the semis. Semis take them, unload them in California. And that's when they go through and find out they're dead loss. So the bees had died already in the winter sheds before they even loaded them on. And it was an event that was matched. They say it was just as bad or if not worse than when the mite, the Varroa destructor really took off 25 years ago, right in there. So what is the answer? See, most of you, how many lost half colonies, half your colonies? Anybody? At least one or two over the winter? How many lost everything? Okay, a few of you. How many don't have bees, so you don't know what I'm talking about? I don't know. So, there is so many things that we do to keep your bees alive. And you did everything right. And this is the frustrating thing. You've done everything right. You have done nothing wrong. You made sure your mite load was low. They're well fed. And then, so here is something that is taking place that is out of your control. And that is when the farmers are spraying or the backyard gardener is spraying and your bees get it. See, what happens is that bee will pick up nectar or pollen, the neonicotinoid, and that doesn't kill them on the plant. They take it back to the hive. And they feed what? They feed their brood, or they store that pollen in the comb, or the nectar in the comb. And so it's the pollen and the nectar stored in the comb elevates the residual, and so the comb becomes toxic over time. That's why you hear me saying you need to rotate your comb on a consistent basis. If you have comb that's 10 years old, it's toxic. Just because I get sprayed, I have more issues in the valley here than I ever had in California by far. It is illegal for the farmer to spray in the month of February all the way up to the second week in March in California. They can't spray anything. Fungicides, pesticides, herbicides, pre-emergents, they can't spray. And it's healthy, it's like $200,000 if they get caught. So I don't get sprayed in California. It's in the Grand Valley. When I come back and they hit the ground in Palisade, all the orchards and vineyards, heavy sprays, those in Fruta and Loma and Mac, all the hay farmers, the weevils spray early. And then those that are growing seed, the seed farmers, the hay seed farmers, and I stay away. There's about a 4-mile stretch that I don't even get close to because the hay seed farmers are in that stretch of the valley and they spray very hard. Anybody that grows any kind of vegetables like peppers, the pepper farmers in town, that'll kill your bees. I lost a whole yard one year because I didn't know. I'd been there consistently. It was real good every year. And then a farmer about a half a mile away, he grew about 10 acres of peppers and sprayed the snot out of me. So that, when I say a yard, I'm saying 36 colonies, boom, gone. Just that's overnight. And so, like I said, I've got hit worse here than anywhere else. In Idaho, we run South Dakota, the northern part of South Dakota, no problems there. This is the worst, but this is good honey. So we just deal with it, and how you deal with it, changing your comb. You gotta keep your comb rotated. Right on? Okay, so that means if you're looking, and if it's turning, and you've heard me say that before, and it's gonna be even more important now with neonics. They have been outlawed by, and this is what the law reads in Colorado, that only a licensed applicator may apply neonicotinoids. They can still apply it, but you and I can't go down, they no longer available at Home Depot and Lowe's. They were. But now they're not. But the applicators are still spraying it. I believe after this year and the lawsuits that are coming out against Bayer, and that's the main producer of neonicotinoids. Monsanto is also one, but main was Bayer, and there are already lawsuits that are class action lawsuits. We're talking a couple $1 billion class action lawsuit. There goes neonic, so it'll probably be done. But it'll probably take 5 to 10 years. In the meantime, what we got to do, because the license applicators are still spraying, but they're only supposed to spray certain levels. That's okay, except for the residuals. If it hits your bees, if the bees get into it and they bring it back, well, it's going to tank it. That's why some of you'll have one hive that's doing well and one hive that is struggling. And you can't figure out why is that hive struggling when they're next to each other? Aren't they getting the same thing? Well, one hive might have got into some pesticide herbicides somewhere and brought it back, and so they're struggling. So there's gut health that you can do, a number of things that are going to boost your gut health. And we talk about Mellifera Boost. We talk about the other probiotics that you can pick up. There's some really good things there that increase gut health, and because if they're dealing, it's not necessarily virus, but pesticide that they're dealing with this time of year. And a good looking hive is just overcome it. Doesn't mean that they haven't got exposed to it. It's just that they're strong enough to overcome it. They have enough new bees come along. However, if it's in the comb, then doesn't matter what happens. They're always going to have that struggle. It's one of the things that adds to the virus loads that they're always dealing with, the mite load that they're always dealing with. Now there's very specific pesticides, very powerful pesticides. And now that University of Texas or the Austin, they published their findings. And so a lot of other companies and research centers and universities, I think there's 5 different ones, big guys, that are doing the same research, and they all come to that same conclusion that'll shut down neonics, which is good. Roger, yes, that's good. I mean, anyway, any questions so far?
You know, is there any reaction like discoloration in the wax, or is it just colorless?
What you'll normally find is they will propolyze any of those cells that have poison, that they know it's a problem. But oftentimes if a hive gets so sick, they won't do that because they're just struggling to stay alive. So, but a normal sign is propolyzation of a cell or many cells, especially around the corner. And you need to be at least on a 5-year rotation. All your comb be rotated out in 5 years. So the oldest comb that you have in your colony is 5 years old. If you will do that, it'll make a tremendous difference. So, and a lot of you buy Nooks, you're buying Nooks from somebody that is rotating their comb. So that comb that you have, it's at least 5 years, okay? So you take that, and then even it might look good, and that's okay, because a lot of times it is. And knowing that you're going to want to eventually replace that. So the couple things you can do. Well, you got one that's full of brood. I don't want to replace this beautiful comb because that's 5,000 bees right there. I just don't want to pull that out and discard it because, 5,000 bees, what do I do? Oftentimes you say, well, you're trying to catch it. So when the bees hatch, you'll be able to pull that comb, but then that queen just laid right back. She loves to lay back on an old brood comb. And so what you do is, it might be in the bottom the bottom brood box, that middle, and you want to trade that out. Well, what you want to do then is take that one and put it in the top super. So you take a blanket or whatever, put that in the top, or not super, but top brood box. But before you do that, put a queen excluder. So she can't lay in that upper box. Sometimes if it's a really packed 2 brood box, I'll throw that 3rd one on top. 3rd brood box. And I'll take those old comb, put excluder here, third brood box, and put those frames on that third brood box till they hatch. She can't come up and lay, then I can take them out without losing any bees. So it's a process, and you gotta, and a lot of you this time of year, you're gonna have 2 double brood box full of bees. So they're gonna add, you're gonna have to add that third brood box with taking those old frames, queen excluder, old frames, throwing them on top, bees hatch, she can't relay in it. And then you can remove that third brood box.
I like to switch out that comb. Because if you take 2 every year, in 5 years, you'll have replaced all the comb, right? Okay. So what I like to do is when I get in it first thing in the spring, you don't have near as many bees, you probably only have 1 box full of bees. That's when you can go through, take the dirtiest 2 and take them out and replace them. And there's no honey in these, there's no brood in them because there's only 1 box of bees because it's, March 1st. That works out really well. But every year, 2 come out of every box. Every box you own, 2 come out. And that'll keep you on a nice 5-year. Now, you say, well, this one might be older. Well, that's true, but when I do my first inspection, I go through this box and I find the ugliest, nastiest looking frames, 2 frames, and that's what goes. Because even if one over here is maybe older, but it hasn't been walked on as much or isn't as dark, but this one got exposed to more toxins and stuff. So I always just take the 2 nastiest frames and chuck them.
And a lot of people will mark their tops of their frames with the same color as the queen, so they know what year it is. So this year's blue, so you can get a blue marker, mark the top of the frame, if it's brand new frame going in, blue, that I can remember, well, that was 2025.
I've seen people do it with Sharpie and just write the date, like 6/24.
You could write on it, it's a little bit easier, just the color, or color Sharpie, and you can. But if it's just a pencil, it'll be gone in a week. If a pen will actually fade as well, but a good, something that'll penetrate the wood, especially if it's brand new. Brand new, it's wide open and it's easy to, but whatever you're doing, it'll soak into the wood, and in 5 years, you'll still be able to see it pretty. If it's more than just a little dot, I mark it pretty. Yeah. Any questions on that? Okay. Yeah, that's when I was talking to Eric Oliver, and he was telling me, yeah, man, we lost 70%, and I couldn't believe it, because they've never lost that many ever. They've been keeping bees for 40 some years, never lost that many. And so he said there has to be something more than mite load, virus load. That was a lot of people that came out and said, well, it's just a mite load, virus load, and Amitraz resistant mites. That's what they threw against the wall. And people said, well, no, we're not using Amitraz. Or the big guys said, we're still using Amitraz, saying, well, we've seen we didn't have a mite load going into the winter shed. We didn't have a mite load, and if they're broodless, the mites cannot reproduce. So it has to be more than that. And I'm just not accepting that. But then a couple of these research labs come out with elevated, and that made a big stir. So I've been watching and looking and seeing it's been pretty quiet up till now, but let's see what some of these other reports come out. But I'm giving to you, that's basically some of the findings that are coming out. So comes down to comb, changing out your comb. So yeah.
So is it okay to reuse the plastic foundation to clean the wax out?
Scraping the wax down to the plastic is what you're saying, and then re-waxing it with something. Yeah, it's a lot of work compared to how much these cost. I'm selling these for $3, double wax, whole thing.
So.
I got 100 of them with me right now, 100 of them, so if you need some frames today, just let me know, I got 100 on the truck. What's that?
Well, she was saying, can that pesticide get into the plastic?
The residual of pesticides can absorb into plastic.
It can,
yes.
I thought it's.
And wood.
It's not real porous. Plastic is not real porous like wood or wax.
Well, I mean, it's just like any pesticide, you ever have tea tree in a bottle and then after it's empty, try to use it for something else?
You can also just pop the whole, scrape the wax off and just pop the plastic out and put new plastic in.
Yeah.
That'll save you a considerable amount of money if the wood is still in good shape. Anything wrong with the wood, just throw it.
Usually anything older than that, though, it depends. Some aren't as hammered as others, so.
Can't that wood be contaminated as
Sure.
well as the wax?
Sure. So I don't even monkey with it anymore. I used to do that. I've got probably 1,000 frames that are empty that have popped out and it's so much easier that, I mean, once. Like I said, this is a Peerco, one of the best companies. It's got a heavy duty. The plastics doesn't warp, doesn't bend like some of the other cheaper companies. 5 staple all glued. Been at 8 years, better than I can do it, so. And of course, we had to buy thousands to get that price, but. So that's what I'm saying, you're not gonna get a better deal, it's $3 a piece. And I do that, I'm not making any money on that, I just do that for the club. Yeah,
I got 200 frames and I only had one bad one because the staple went the wrong direction. So I mean, they're really good frames.
anyway, just. If you don't need frames and that's good, or you don't use frames, you just use drawn comb, then that's all right, get starters or whatever you do, but just make sure you change out process your combs. And that'll help a lot. Second thing is, keep up on your mite load. If you have your oxalic acid strips in, and you got a bunch of supers on there, you don't want to run them more than 90 days and try to refresh them, okay? In other words, if they've been on for 90 days, it might be wise to look at them and see how, if they're still moist. Sometimes they chew them out. A good hygienic hive will chew those out and you put them in there, they're just gone. And they say, why are they gone? Because they literally chewed them out. And there's some of them that do that. Most of the time they'll propolize all the way around it. And so heavy propolis strips will do the same. They lose their efficacy because basically the bees don't walk over them. And that's how the mites are exposed, is when the nurse bees with the mite walks over that pad and then oxalic acid washes over the mite. That's how it kills the mite. So even though that pad might still be moist, if it's heavy propolized or if it's lost the moisture, then it's lost its efficacy. So you just need to scrape them out and put some new ones on. And I know it's a pain this time of year because you got a bunch of supers on there and they're in between the bottom and the second brood box. And man, I got to dig all the way down there. I really don't want to do that, but this is important because your population is reaching this month, we reached the maximum population of a hive this month. So those of you who have real strong hives, you're up there to 60,000, some even more than that. And if you have that many bees, just think of all the mites that have been reproduced. And so if your oxalic acid pads have lost their efficacy, then basically you got a mite bomb and you're about ready to crash. Because as soon as August hits, that's when things start diving on your numbers. The bee numbers go down, but the mite numbers do not. Your mite load stays static, bee numbers start going down. So I would suggest, so those of you that are doing your Honey extraction, that is a good time. Get your honey off. Take care of your honey. But go back the next day, next couple of days, check your oxalic acid pads if you're using oxalic acid pads. If you got your honey off and you want to use some of the other miticides, and that's what you're used to, and that's what you found success with, that's a good time to do it in July. Again, when is the winter nest being built? Anybody know that answer? When does the bees build the winter nest?
August.
September.
It's September. It's the September bees. But it's the August bees that are raising. And you want August bees to be healthy to raise the winter nest. You got sick mamas trying to raise kids, what they're feeding them, that the hypopharyngeal gland is they are feeding, if they got a virus load and they're trying to raise that next generation, well, you're gonna have sick bees. Sick bees only raise sick bees. So August, you have to have good, healthy hives. The only way to have good, healthy hives, make sure your mite load in July, static. How do you know what your mite load is? I'm guessing, I got a microscope here. Might wash, yep. And
I've heard many people say, well, I look at them and I don't see any mites. Wrong, you don't see the mites because they're underneath, they're on the bottom of the bee, and they're up under the scales on their abdomen, so they're very, very hard to see.
if you see a mite on the back, that means there is a terrible mite load, it's bonkers. And visually, if you're visually looking in and you're seeing mites crawling on the bars, well, it's bad. It's just dead beehive walking, that's what that is. Anyway, so and that's why this has been such a difficult situation with the Varroa, is because most of the miticides could not be used when you had honey supers on. All your commercial miticides, there's only a couple of them, and you really couldn't use those because it kills the queen. Formic acid, this time of year, you're gonna torch that queen. There's, so after you get the honey supers off, then, but again, oxalic acid can be used with honey super, so that's why we kind of lean towards that. Any questions on miticides and this time of year?
So we never add, we always keep the pads down in the bottom. of the
Yeah,
box.
it's in between.
So even though you have 2 of boxes, it's still gonna keep it.
Yes, it's always, you always want them in between. This is where the brood nest is. It will always be in between here. This is where the brood nest is. That's where the majority of mites are, because that's where they are prolificating, is in the brood nest. So this is where you want your miticides to be. Always in. And again, those pads, those 4 pads, this way, perpendicular, 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure they're not out here at the sides or in the corners. Put them over the brood nest. Usually about 3/4 of an inch or an inch apart, so that the bees can crawl over. Some people say, well, I just put the whole pad. I didn't cut the pad, I just put the whole pad. Well, you ruined your efficacy, because how it works is the bees crawl up over them. And now you just removed the main part of the traffic. So they're going all the way around, and on the outside, well, you lost a lot of the brood nest. So those nurse bees that were going up and down in the middle now are not climbing through the middle anymore, because I put the whole pad. So cut them in strips of 4, put the 4, right, 2, 3, 4, right there in the middle. 1-to-1 is the mixture by weight. No, by volume. No, it's by weight.
Weight.
I think it's weight on the,
Here's the deal, the weight, technically speaking, chemistry, you're supposed to do weight. The weights of them are so close,
it's
and we're not chemists, you can just use volume, it's easier, and it'll come out the same. Because the difference in the weight of the 2 materials is so negligible.
so vegetable glycerin and oxalic acid.
And make sure you get food grade
Vegetable,
glycerin,
yeah,
not cosmetic grade.
and do not use vegetable oil. Okay.
So we have a question. They
Yeah.
said they bought liquid wood bleach. It has 2 bottles, an A and a B to mix together.
Yeah. That's excuse the. And there is a lot of Chinese that are jumping on the bandwagon because all of a sudden there's these huge orders of oxalic acid in on Amazon, and so there's a lot of oxalic acid that's been cut with filler, and so it's not that pure. So there's a couple of places that you can get the best oxalic acid is Florida Laboratories. Florida Laboratories. That, if you know, when you buy, and you're not buying bulk, you're just buying a bag of it, and so that would, it is 99% pure, and Florida Laboratories is very renowned for that. You're gonna pay a little bit more than you would by going to hardware, Ace Hardware, and buying wood bleach. But Ace Hardware wood bleach has got filler in it, and so even though you did 1-to-1, you're still not getting enough oxalic acid because you got half of its filler. So you make sure your oxalic acid is, and it's the same as food grade vegetable glycerin. So make sure oxalic acid also is, it is the pure or from a reputable manufacturer. You can buy it from the B supplies, but it's gonna be, they're gonna charge you, there's an upcharge there, you're gonna probably pay another 30%. But you'll know it is high grade, but if you get it from Florida Laboratories, you're good.
And you can find that Florida Lab on Amazon. Just make sure
Yeah.
you're finding Florida Lab
Yes,
on
yes,
Amazon.
exactly. Yep, I don't know, once if I have any left over, I don't refrigerate those. I seal them in a Ziploc and then I put them in a pail and lock them down so they're sealed tight. And I just put them in a cool, dry place. I don't have to put them in the refrigerator, but you got a fairly cool, dry place. And then if you're storing them over time, before you put them on, let them warm up. If that oxalic acid went back to that solid compound, it'll cause those strips to stick together. Just leave them out in the sun and it heats them up, and then they're real pliable again. So that's, especially like I said, I put them in a Ziploc baggie. So I'll just throw that baggie out on the, even on the hood or on the deck of my truck, and so when and it heats up within a half hour or so, ready to put them. So if you made some in advance, I have these. Oxalic acid in that state does not lose its efficacy if it's sealed. So if it's in open air, then yeah, over time it will, but because of the nature of oxalic acid, it doesn't lose its ability to kill the mines. So that, just keep it sealed and you're fine. Amatraz does, the half-life of Amatraz is like a week. So if you open that bag of Amatraz, that even if it was manufactured, and that would be Apivar, I think that is you use an Apivar and you have some Apivar from last year, it's not gonna work. Even if it's sealed in that foiled bag. So the manufacturer, the half-life of Amatraz is really, it's from its manufacture date is about 6 weeks in a sealed bag. You open it up and you got literally days and it's no good. So just know that if you're using Amatraz and if you have leftover Amatraz from years before, that's Apivar. If you have those Apivar, say, well, I have some last year and I put that on, we're finding that's, so the manufacturer of Apivar even states that on their product now, because there's lawsuits along those lines. A lot of people were using it. And the efficacy drop dramatically after time. Very good. There's more ice cream. Also, who needs an extractor? I'm about ready to make a deal of a lifetime. I brought that, it's a 16 frame man leg motorized extractor, $1,800. It's 2 years old. We bought it because we were doing whenever we wanted to do a small batch, such as, hey, we got over here, I got some a peach orchard or lavender. We had a lavender little farm and we didn't have enough frames to run the whole system. I didn't want to fire up the whole system. So I bought this small extractor. It's only 2 years old. Probably had 200 frames is all run through it. And I'll sell it for $500. So take it home.
So, one last thing before we go, there was a gentleman who used to be in the club who moved out of state. He gave his equipment to another person who was a former member, and she's decided that she wants to go long line instead of regular. So they just dropped it off to me right before the meeting. I haven't had a chance to go through all of it, but I've gone through some of it. So on the back table back there, some of the stuff I brought, there's like screen bottom board, a solid bottom board. The screen bottom board doesn't need to have the landing board fixed, so just nail it back on. Apparently he used starter strips instead of full foundation, so there's lots of pieces of foundation. You can just snap into, snap the top into the thing. So it's all back there on the back table. Go through it, take it. So.
Yeah, it's free, so you can't beat that. You try to talk him down, but I don't know. Okay, anybody else? Good. So if you're, when do we do our honey tasting thing? Is that next month or?
No, it's like October.
It's October?
October.
Okay, so
September 1st.
what's that?
September 1st.
Yeah.
It's been traditionally October, November.
October, yeah.
So the best time to harvest the honey is, when it's available, but you can leave it on. If you take the honey off and you don't extract it right away, you gotta warm that honey up somehow. So you gotta build a makeshift heat room to heat that honey back up. In other words, it takes forever to extract, especially those of you with the hand cranks, you know what I'm talking about. It's like,
This time of year, just put a good bottom board, a good top board on it where nothing can get in it, leave it on your patio till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Comes out really nice.
all over the patio floor.
But in September, yeah. you gotta warm it.
So I didn't, so if you have to warm it back up, what I've done is just taken an empty box, put a incandescent light bulb in there, if you can find one of those anymore. And then put your other box on the top, and in about half hour, 45 minutes, it's decent enough that you can extract. So. But, yep,
Very good.
I need to get framed.
and if you do need an extractor, at the club, I've got 2 manual ones, the small one's a 3-frame, one's a 2-frame. So.
Need frames, you want frames, come talk to me if you want great deal on extractor. I'm giving that thing away basically, so. And also if you want.
Have a good
rabbit
night.
Brush, I always call it rabbit bush, but